Sometimes the most profound partnerships begin not with pleasantries, but with two strangers reaching for the same lifeline. This story takes place in Comanche County, Texas, during the spring of 883, a time when the frontier still harbored raw wounds from wars both civil and indigenous. It's about Samuel Wade, a Union artillery officer whose body bore the permanent souvenirs of Antietam, and Maria Redwing, an Apache woman standing alone against a world that wanted her gone. Neither sought companionship. Both had learned that survival meant keeping others at arm's length. Yet when powerful men conspired to steal the only thing Maria had left, her land, these two outcasts discovered that sometimes the strongest alliances are forged between those whom society has already written off. What follows is their story, told as it truly happened, without varnish or sentiment. The blood on the survey map wasn't Samuel's. He stood frozen in the doorway of the Sunset Creek Land Office. His weight shifted onto his good leg. Watching Maria Redwing press a torn strip of her cotton sleeve against her palm. The map beneath her hand, the same 1867 territorial survey he'd been studying for 3 days, was now marked with crimson droplets that spread across the Rio Grande's blue line like tiny crimes. "Don't move," Samuel said, though she hadn't intended to. Her dark eyes tracked him as he limped forward, his makeshift mesquite cane clicking against the pine floor. The office clerk, Mr. Hutchinson, had vanished through the back door the moment Maria had slammed her bleeding hand on his desk. "He had a knife," she said, her voice steady as bedrock. "Under the counter." Samuel pulled out his handkerchief, Union blue, faded but clean. "May I?" She studied him for a long moment. He'd seen that look before, in Confederate prisoners, weighing whether Union medical aid came with hidden costs. Finally, she extended her hand. The cut ran diagonal across her palm, deliberate and deep. "He did this because you wouldn't leave, because I can read Spanish." She nodded toward the map, the original boundaries. From 1830, before Texas was Texas. Samuel wrapped the handkerchief tight, his own damaged hand trembling slightly from the old nerve damage. 3 Miney balls at Antietam had left their permanent calling cards. These boundaries, they're different from what Garrison Ranch filed by 2 miles, enough to steal my water rights. The afternoon sun slanted through the dusty window, illuminating the age-yellowed map. Samuel could see it now, where someone had traced new lines in modern ink, shifting the creek boundaries eastward. Amateur work. But in a town where most folks couldn't read Spanish land grants, it might have stood, "You have the original grant had." Maria's jaw tightened. "There was a fire last night, very selective, only burned my shed." Samuel felt the familiar cold calculation from his artillery days reading terrain, anticipating enemy positions. "They're moving fast. The hearing's in a week." 4 days. He looked at the blood drying on the map, then at Maria's face. She wasn't asking for help. People like them had learned not to ask. But he recognized something in her stance, the particular stillness of someone making a last stand. "There's another copy," Samuel said slowly. "Has to be. Mexican territorial documents were always duplicated. Mission San Miguel. 30 miles through Apache territory." She said it like a test. "I've ridden through worse." He tapped his bad leg. "Just not as fast as I used to." Maria unwound his handkerchief, examined the cut with clinical detachment. "Why would you—" She stopped herself. "No. Don't answer that. Men always have reasons, and they're usually disappointing." "I read artillery tables for trajectory calculations," Samuel said instead. "Elevation, distance, windage, land surveys use the same mathematics, and I don't like cheats." She rewrapped her hand, this time incorporating her torn sleeve. The mission's been abandoned 10 years. Roof's half gone. Records rooms, usually in the basement. Stone walls. You've done this before? Retrieved things from damaged buildings? Yes. He didn't elaborate. Antietam had been full of damaged buildings with important things inside, wounded men. Ammunition, maps. Maria stood, and Samuel noticed she was taller than him when he leaned on his cane. I ride at dawn, if you're coming. Bring water for 2 days. And Mr. Wade. She paused at the door. Hutchinson's knife. It wasn't meant to cut me. It was meant for you. I just got in the way. She left before he could respond, her boots silent on the floor despite their heavy leather. Samuel looked down at the blood-stained map, at the false boundaries drawn by greedy men who assumed no one would check their work. He'd need ammunition. Not for fighting. He'd given that up the day he'd taken his last mini-A ball, but out in the territory, between here and the mission, there were things that didn't care about land grants or water rights, things that only respected the universal language of a well-maintained Springfield rifle. The clerk's door remained closed. Samuel folded the bloodied map carefully, tucked it inside his coat. Evidence. His officer's training reminded him, always preserve evidence. As he stepped outside, the late afternoon heat hit him like a physical presence across the street. 3 men from the Garrison Ranch watched from the saloon porch, one of them the foreman. Pike touched his hat brim in mock courtesy. Samuel didn't acknowledge them. He had preparations to make, and now he understood why Hutchinson had pulled that knife. They hadn't expected anyone to help Maria Redwing. They certainly hadn't expected a crippled ex-soldier to complicate their land grab. His bad leg screamed as he made his way down the steps. But he kept his face neutral. Pain was just information. His field surgeon had told him, it tells you you're alive and what needs protecting. Right now, it was telling him that Maria Redwing wasn't the only one in danger. The question was whether she knew that, or whether she was simply better at hiding her calculations than he was. The bloodstains on his handkerchief had already turned rust brown in the desert heat. By dawn, they'd look like they'd been there forever. In his experience, that's how quickly things became history out here overnight. Between one sunrise and the next, facts could be rewritten entirely, unless someone stopped them. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The knock came just as Samuel finished cleaning his Springfield. 3 taps, evenly spaced. Soldier's knock. He set the oiled rag aside, checked the Colt in his shoulder holster habit from years of unexpected visitors, and opened the door to Mrs. Watson's second-floor hallway. Maria Redwing stood there, no longer bleeding, but still wearing the same torn sleeve. You understood those surveys. Not a question. Her eyes tracked past him to the desk where his own hand-drawn map spread across the warped pine surface. Samuel stepped aside. She entered, bringing the smell of leather and sage. The floorboards creaked under her boots. She walked heavy now, not trying to hide her presence. Garrison's men are watching the house, she said, moving to the window. She stood to the seat, peering through the gap in the calico curtains. 2 across the street, 1 in the alley. They followed you. They were already here. She turned from the window. For you. Samuel's fingers found the survey he'd been copying in the lamplight. His pencil marks showed elevation calculations, water table estimates. Your land controls Sunset Creek's narrowest point, only year-round water for 20 miles. You've been busy. Maria approached the desk, her shadow falling across his work. She pulled a folded document from inside her jacket. Can you read this?" The paper was old, edges brown as tobacco, Spanish script in iron gall ink, the kind that bit deep into paper. Samuel held it to the whale oil lamp. Decreto Territorial, 1834. He worked through the formal language. Water rights in perpetuity. Your grandfather grandmother married Apache style to my grandfather, but the Mexican government recognized her claim. Maria's finger traced a specific passage. This part, Samuel translated slowly, all springs originating within the boundary markers, including seasonal streams. He looked up. Garrison's new survey puts the spring origin on his land. Convenient. Impossible. Springs don't move. Samuel pulled out his artillery notebook, pages filled with trajectory tables. I mapped water sources for 3 years during the war. Springs emerge from underground pressure. The geology here? He sketched quickly. Limestone substrate. The spring has to originate where your grant says. Maria studied his drawing. You're not a surveyor. Artillery captain, a different kind of calculation. Same mathematics. His bad hand cramped. He flexed it. Garrison's foreman. Pike, he was at Chickamauga, knows how to read terrain. He'd know this survey is false. Then why risk it? Samuel heard boots on the stairs. Heavy, deliberate, not a trying for stealth, because they think no one will check their work. Who's going to challenge them? A crippled soldier and an Apache woman. The footsteps stopped outside his door. The doorknob turned, slow, testing. Samuel's hand found the Colt. Maria stepped left, out of the door's direct line, her own hand disappearing beneath her jacket. The whale oil lamp flickered, throwing their shadows against the wall like cave paintings. Wade! Pike's voice through the wood. Know you're in there. Samuel held up 3 fingers to Maria. She nodded. She'd counted the footsteps, too. He moved to the door, keeping his weight on his good leg. Late for a social call, Pike. Mr. Garrison wants to talk, friendly-like. Tell him I'll be at the land office tomorrow. A pause. Boot leather creaked as Pike shifted. Wasn't a request. Samuel thumbed back the Colt's hammer. The click carried through the door. Still sounds like one. Silent stretched. The lamp wick needed trimming. Carbon gathered at its tip, darkening the room. Maria stood motionless, only her eyes moving between door and window. The Apache woman in there with you? Pike asked. Samuel said nothing. Garrison's offering $500 for you to verify his survey. Cash money. More than you'll see in 3 years of... Another pause. Whatever it is cripples do for work. Maria's hand emerged from her jacket, holding a skinning knife, blade blackened with soot to prevent reflection. She moved toward the window. Sell in on the worn boards. 500, Pike repeated. Or things get complicated. Already complicated, Samuel said. Your boss filed false boundaries. Pike laughed. Prove it. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Samuel waited, counting heartbeats. 40. Before he heard the front door slam, Maria peered through the curtain gap. They're leaving, she said. All 3. Samuel eased the hammer down. His bad leg trembled from holding position too long. They'll be back before dawn. Maria sheathed her knife. We need those original markers tonight. They left through Mrs. Watson's root cellar. Maria first, testing each wooden step. Samuel followed, his cane useless in the narrow space, forced to grip the earthen walls. Spider silk caught his face. The air tasted of turnips and damp soil. The exterior door opened behind the chicken coop. The hen stirred but didn't cry out. Maria waited while Samuel's eyes adjusted to moonlight. Quarter moon, enough to navigate, but not enough to make targets. She'd brought 2 horses to the back alley, a paint mare and a bay gelding with artillery brand on its flank. Cavalry surplus, Samuel asked. Recognizing the brand, everything out here is surplus. Maria checked the saddle rigging, including us. The horse's breath steamed in the cool desert night. Samuel gripped the saddle horn, set his good foot in the stirrup. His bad leg refused to swing over. Maria watched without comment as he grabbed his own pants leg, manually lifting it across. They rode east toward the disputed boundary, keeping to the arrow washes where possible. The horse's hooves whispered through sand. Saguaro cacti stood like sentinels, their arms black against stars-cool pictures. 2 miles out, Maria dismounted. Samuel followed, Bones already protesting. She pulled a shuttered lantern from her saddlebag, lit it with a sulfur match. The smell bit sharp in the clean air. The first marker should be here. She opened the shutter a crack, swept the light across rocks and scrub brush. Samuel saw it a limestone post, 2 feet high, carved with U.S. Survey 18th and coordinates. Someone had taken a chisel to the numbers, tried to recarve them. Amateur work. The original grooves still showed underneath. "Got paper?" Maria asked. Samuel pulled out his notebook, laid thin paper over the stone. Maria held the lantern while he rubbed charcoal across the surface. The original numbers emerged like ghostwriting. 32 degrees, 12 minutes, good, he read. They changed it to 32 degrees, 15 minutes, shush. 3 minutes of latitude, Maria calculated. Near enough, 2 miles north. They found the second marker, 50 yards east. This one had been moved entirely. Samuel could see the depression where it originally stood, fill dirt not quite matching the surrounding hardpan. Maria crouched by the original hole, fingers probing the earth. She pulled out a handful of soil, smelled it. 6 months, maybe 7, winter work. Planning this a while. The third marker lay shattered. Someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. Maria gathered the pieces while Samuel held the lantern. One fragment still showed partial coordinates. "Can you read it?" she asked. Samuel fitted pieces together like a puzzle. His damaged hand trembled. He steadied it against his knee. Enough. The elevation marks see 4,200 feet. Garrison's new survey shows 4,000 even. The spring has to be. Water emerges at that elevation, flows downhill. Basic physics. Maria stood, dusted her hands. There's something else. She led him up slope, through a cluster of juniper. The lantern light caught carved bark old, scarred over, but still visible. "Apache trail marker," she said. "My grandfather's mark. And here." She moved Iki to a flat boulder, brushed away sand to reveal petroglyphs, spirals and stick figures, and what might have been water symbols. "Before my grandfather, Pa. Before Mexico. Before any surveys." Samuel traced the carvings. "How old?" "Grandmother said 7 generations, maybe more." A coyote called from the ridge above them. Another answered from across the valley. Maria stiffened. "Those aren't coyotes," she said. Samuel heard it, too, the calls too regular, too purposeful. "Pike's men, or Apache. Not all of them appreciate me claiming this land." She shuttered the lantern completely. "We need to move." They led the horses down slope, moving by memory and moonlight. Samuel's cane caught on rocks. Maria's hand found his elbow, steadying without pulling. The fake coyote calls grew closer at the horses. Maria stopped. Fresh tracks in the sand boot prints, crossing their own trail. "They're ahead of us," Samuel said. Maria swung onto her mare, and behind. She leaned down, offered her arm. "Leave the gelding. Ride with me." Samuel looked at her outstretched hand. The practical choice his bad leg would slow them both if he tried to mount alone, but practical had stopped mattering the moment those boot prints crossed their trail. "They're herding us," he said, "toward the canyon." Maria's eyes reflected moonlight. Yes, That's where the spring is, the real boundary. She nodded slowly. Where they planned to end this. A rifle shot cracked across the desert. The bay gelding screamed, collapsed. Blood black in moonlight spread beneath its neck. The paint mare reared. Maria gripped the reins with one hand, reached for Samuel with the other. He caught her wrist, set his good foot against a rock, and swung up behind her. His bad leg scraped against the saddle leather. Pain shot through his hip. Another rifle crack, rock chips exploded where he'd been standing. Maria wheeled the mare toward the arroyo. The horse needed no urging. It plunged down the steep bank, sand cascading. Samuel wrapped his arm around Maria's waist, felt her ribs expand with each breath. The Springfield rifle across his back gouged his spine with every jolt. Hoofbeats thundered behind them. 3 riders, maybe 4. The arroyo twisted left. Maria took it at full gallop. Mesquite branches whipped past. One caught Samuel's cheek, drew blood. The mare's hooves struck sparks from exposed bedrock. Each impact jarred through Samuel's damaged leg. He tasted copper bit through his own tongue. Maria yanked the reins right. The mare scrambled up a side wash, loose shale sliding. They burst onto flat ground. Ahead, Maria's cabin. Windows dark, chimney cold. Inside, she said. Samuel slid off first, legs buckling. He caught himself on the mare's flank, limped toward the door. Maria followed, leading the horse around back. The cabin door stood open. Samuel stopped. The leather hinges Maria had shown him earlier cut. He pulled the colt, stepped inside. Moonlight through the windows revealed overturned furniture, scattered papers. Flour from a slashed sack dusted everything like ash. Boot prints in the flour, large size 11, maybe 12, Pike's size. Maria appeared in the doorway. She surveyed the damage without expression, walked to the corner where her grandmother's pottery lay in pieces. She picked up a shard painted with geometric designs, turned it in her fingers, set it on the table. They're coming, Samuel said. Let them. She struck a match, lit the coal oil lamp. The light revealed more destruction, clothes torn from pegs, bedding slashed, a photograph of a young Apache woman, frame cracked, glass spider-webbed, horse approaching, no attempt at stealth now. Maria pumped water from the kitchen pitcher into a basin, washed the trail dust from her face. Samuel watched her steady hands, the deliberate normalcy of the action. Heavy boots on the porch. Pike filled the doorway. 2 men behind him. His pale eyes took in Samuel, then Maria. Evening, Miss Redwing. He touched his hat brim. Apologies for the mess. My boys got enthusiastic. Maria dried her hands on a cloth. What do you want? Mr. Garrison sent me to make an offer. Generous one. Pike stepped inside uninvited. Flour puffed under his boots. $500. Cash. You sign over the water rights. Leave by week's end. No. Figured you'd say that. Pike's hand rested on his gun belt. So, Mr. Garrison authorized me to explain the alternatives. One of Pike's men, young, acne-scarred, moved to the window. The third stayed in the doorway, blocking it. Samuel calculated angles, distances. His Springfield leaned in the corner, too far. The Colt had 6 shots. 3 men. Your cabin's on disputed land, Pike continued. Once the survey's validated, you're trespassing. Sheriff'll have to evict you. Might get rough. The survey's false, Samuel said. Pike's attention shifted. Captain Wade, war hero. The words dripped contempt. Couldn't leave well enough alone. The original markers prove what? Pike pulled a familiar stone fragment from his coat, part of the shattered boundary marker. This found it, scattered all over. Vandalism, probably those renegade Apache. Or maybe. He looked at Maria. Someone trying to confuse legal boundaries. He dropped the fragment. It cracked against the floor. See, Captain, evidence is funny. Depends who's telling the story. Pike's hand shifted to his pistol grip. "Take tonight. You two were out there. My boys saw you, near where we found that dead cavalry horse. Terrible thing, horse theft, hanging offense. That was your man who what? Protected Mr. Garrison's property from thieves." Pike smiled. 3 witnesses say different. The young one at the window hawked, spat tobacco juice on Maria's floor, brown splatter across the flour dust. Maria's jaw tightened. First emotion Samuel had seen her show. "Then there's the matter of fires." Pike continued. "Lot of fires lately. That shed last week. Who knows what might burn next?" He looked meaningfully at the coal oil lamp. "Accidents happen, especially to people living alone." Maria spoke quietly. "Get out." "Happy to. Soon as you agree to Mr. Garrison's offer. The courthouse has our documentation," Samuel said. "Copies of everything." Pike laughed. "You mean the papers you filed with Tom Hutchinson? Tom's forgetful. Loses things?" He pulled out a fold of documents, waved them. "Like these." Samuel recognized his own handwriting on the copies. The blood from Maria's hand still stained one corner. "Now," Pike said, "we can do this easy or hard. Sign the papers. Take the money, leave, or what?" Maria stepped forward. "You'll murder us like you tried tonight." "Murder?" Pike's eyebrows rose. "No one tried to murder anyone. Some horse thieves got spooked, ran, abandoned a stolen cavalry mount. We defended ourselves." He shrugged. "Story writes itself." The man in the doorway shifted, hand on his gun. The one at the window turned, tobacco juice dripping from his chin. Samuel's weight shifted to his good leg, freeing the bad one. Old habit from when he could still fight properly. "Garrison scared? Why else send you at night? Scared?" Pike stepped closer. His breath stank of whiskey and chew, of a cripple and a squaw. The word hung in the air. Maria went completely still. Samuel had seen that stillness before, in sharpshooters the moment before they fired. "Tomorrow," she said. "Dawn. Bring Garrison himself. We'll discuss terms." Pike blinked. "You're agreeing." "I'm agreeing to talk dawn. Here." Pike studied her, then nodded slowly. "Dawn it is." He backed toward the door. "Boys." The 3 filed out. Pike paused on the porch. "Captain, that federal pension ain't worth dying for. Neither is she." Their horses thundered away. Maria stood motionless until the sound faded, then walked to her overturned trunk. She pulled out a wooden box from beneath torn linens, opened it. Inside another set of documents, Spanish seals, older than the ones Pike had taken. "You let him take the copies?" Samuel said. "Copies of copies." She held up the originals. "These are from the mission. I retrieved them 2 months ago." Samuel stared. "You already knew about the false survey? Suspected? Needed proof? Needed someone who could read surveys, calculate boundaries?" She looked at him directly. "Needed a witness? They couldn't just disappear. A white witness? A white male witness with military record." She set the documents on the table. "Are you angry?" Samuel considered. His leg throbbed. Blood from the mesquite scratch had dried on his cheek. "No, but Pike won't come alone tomorrow." "I know." Maria pulled out more items from the box. Ammunition, maps, a leather journal filled with notes. "Neither will we?" "We." She opened the journal, pointed to a list of names. Apache who remember the true boundaries, Mexican families who lost land to Garrison before, veterans from Fort Worth who might listen to you. She looked up. "I've been planning this for 6 months. And I'm what your calculated risk, your unexpected..." Maria closed the journal. "They prepared for me alone, not for someone who understands both artillery tables and Spanish land grants." Footsteps on the porch. Light. Quick. Samuel reached for his Colt. A boy appeared in the doorway, maybe 12. Mexican features, clutching a telegram. "Senora Redwing," his voice cracked, "from Fort Worth." Maria took the telegram, read it by lamplight. Her expression darkened. "What?" Samuel asked. She handed him the yellow paper. 3 sentences. Judge Thornton arriving early. Hearing moved to tomorrow noon. Garrison knows. The boy ran off into darkness. Darkness. Coins from Maria clutched in his fist. Lightning flickered on the western horizon. No thunder, yet storm still miles out. Maria bolted the door, dragged her grandmother's chest against it. The scraping wood raised dust from the flower-covered floor. "Help me with the windows." Samuel limped to the nearest one. They worked in silence, sliding wooden bars across shutters. His fingers found old nail holes in the frame she'd barricaded herself in before. "Won't hold against determined men," Samuel said. "Doesn't need to. Just has to slow them." Maria pulled a Winchester from behind the doorframe, checked the action. "Storm's coming fast. They won't move until it passes." The first fat raindrops hit the roof, then more. Within seconds, water hammered the tin sheets above them. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Samuel's shoulder muscles knotted, that familiar tension before bombardment, waiting for the first shell. Thunder rumbled, still distant. His bad hand started its telltale tremor. Maria noticed, said nothing. She pumped water into her coffee pot, set it on the stove, fed kindling to the firebox, coaxing heat from damp wood. Thunder cracked. Closer. Samuel's body jerked. Muscle memory from Antietam, that split second between muzzle flash and impact. His breath came shallow. Sweat beaded despite the cooling air. "Sit," Maria said. Not gentle, not harsh. Matter of fact, he sat. The chair creaked under him. Lightning flashed through the shutter gaps, throwing prison bar shadows across the floor. Thunder followed immediately. His whole body clenched. Maria moved to the shelf above her bed, pulled down a pottery jar. Apache designs spiraled around its surface, one of the few pieces Pike's men hadn't smashed. She opened it, and bitter herb scent filled the room. Laurea, creosote bush. She dropped dried leaves into 2 cups, poured hot water from the kettle. Steam rose, carrying that desert medicine smell. She set 1 cup in front of Samuel. "Drink." "What is it?" "What my grandmother gave warriors who came back carrying ghosts." Samuel lifted the cup. His damaged hand shook. Tea sloshed. He used both hands, sipped, bitter enough to cut through the copper taste of fear. Thunder exploded directly overhead. The cabin shook. Samuel's cup clattered against the table. His vision tunneled. Not here, not now. But then, Antietam, the cornfield, bodies stacked like cordwood. The Confederate battery finding their range, shells walking closer. Maria's hand covered his, warm, real, present. "Breathe," she said. "Count. 4 in, 4 out." He tried, failed, tried again. Her hand stayed on his. "The war visits you," she said. Not a question. 3 times. Hit 3 times. The words came choppy. "Last one took me down. Under the bodies. Stayed there. 18 hours. Shells falling. Men dying on top of me. Their blood." He stopped. Maria's fingers tightened slightly. "The weight." "Yes." "The smell." "Yes." She withdrew her hand, sipped her own tea. "Winter. An army came to move us. Reservation. My mother said no. They shot her. Here." She touched her stomach. "She took 3 hours dying. Made me promise to keep the land. Then my brother tried to fight. 12 years old. They shot him too." Lightning illuminated her face. No tears. Tears were luxury, like soft beds and full bellies. "I hid in the root cellar," she continued, "under the potato sacks. Soldiers walked over the door 20 times. I counted. My mother's blood dripped through the floorboards onto my face. I didn't move, didn't wipe it away. Thunder rolled across the desert. Samuel's tremor had stopped. Strange, her story pulling him out of his own darkness. How old were you? 14? Your father, dead already. Conflict with Mexicans over water rights. She smiled without humor. Always about water out here. Samuel drank more tea. The bitterness grounded him. That's why you came back. To this specific land. Where else would I go? This dirt holds my family's blood. Their bones are in the hill behind us. Leave, and it means they died for nothing. Rain hammered harder. Leaks appeared in the roof, water dripping into placed bowls. Maria didn't move to empty them. The papers from the mission, Samuel said. You went alone. Through Apache territory. Apache, don't bother me. I'm nothing to them now. Mixed blood, contaminated. She refilled his cup. The Mexican families in town, same thing. Not Mexican enough, not white enough, not Apache enough, but white enough to hold land title. My grandmother was Spanish, married my grandfather under Mexican law. It's the only reason I can file claims. Thunder crashed. This time Samuel only tightened his grip on the cup. Progress. Pike called you squaw, he said. Pike calls me lots of things. So does the town. She stood, moved to the window, peered through a shutter crack. But they need my land's water. That makes me worth something. Worth killing for, apparently. Samuel joined her at the window. The storm had turned the world to water and darkness. Nothing visible beyond the porch. They could come tonight, he said. Under cover of storm? No. Garrison's smart. He wants this legal, or legal-looking. Maria turned from the window. Tomorrow at the hearing, he'll have 3 witnesses saying we stole that horse. Hutchinson will say we never filed papers. Judge Thornton will rule in his favor, unless we prove the survey's false. In public, with witnesses who matter, the Mexican families won't testify. Too risky. No, but veterans might listen to you. And I have something else. She retrieved the leather journal from the table, opened it to a marked page. Garrison's previous land deals, 3 Mexican families, 2 Apache, all lost water rights through shifted surveys. Samuel studied the notes. Dates, names, amounts. You've been investigating him. 6 months, since he first approached me with an offer. She pointed to one entry. This one, Hernandez family. Lost everything in 1881. Old man Hernandez drew maps before he died. Look, the hand-drawn map showed boundary shifts identical to Maria's situation. 2 miles. Always 2 miles. Pattern, Samuel said. Evidence of pattern. If we can show the judge, glass shattered, bottle through the window, trailing flame, typical coal oil, the floor erupted in fire. Maria grabbed a blanket, beat at the flames. Samuel stomped with his good foot, dragged the flour sack over. White powder choked the fire, turned it to smoking paste. Another window exploded, another bottle. This one hit the table, splashed liquid fire across Maria's documents. She lunged for them. Flames caught her sleeve. Samuel grabbed her, pulled her back, tore the burning fabric from her arm. Red blisters rose immediately on her forearm. He overturned the water basin onto the table. Steam hissed. The documents half burned. Edges black, but readable. Sons of bitches, Maria hissed. First profanity he'd heard from her. Bootsteps on the porch, not Pike's heavy tread. Lighter, running. Samuel grabbed his Colt, fired through the door. Someone yelped. Footsteps retreated. More bottles crashed through windows. Maria's bed caught fire. The curtains. Smoke filled the cabin. Out! Samuel said. "Now, the documents! Bring them!" She stuffed the charred papers into the leather journal, wrapped it in oilcloth. Samuel grabbed his Springfield ammunition. They stumbled to the back door. It wouldn't budge. Barred from outside. Fire crawled up the walls. Smoke thick enough to chew. Samuel's damaged lungs seized old damage from lying under corpses. Breathing death, Maria dropped to her knees, crawled to the root cellar door in the floor, yanked it open. "Down!" Samuel half fell down the wooden steps. Maria followed, pulled the door shut above them. Darkness absolute. The roar of fire overhead, dirt sifting through floorboards as the cabin burned. "There's another way out," Maria said in the darkness. "Leads to the hillside." Samuel heard her moving, followed by touch. The tunnel narrowed. He crawled, bad leg dragging, dirt in his mouth, his nose like being buried, like Antietam, light ahead, moon through clouds. They emerged behind sagebrush, 20 yards from the burning cabin. Maria's home collapsed inward, sparks spiraling into rain. 3 riders circled the inferno, whooping, not Pike younger men, drunk on violence and whiskey. Maria pressed against Samuel in their hiding spot, and he felt her trembling. Not fear, rage. "Tomorrow." "Ah," she whispered. "At the hearing, we end this." One of the riders turned toward their hiding spot. The moon broke through clouds, illuminating his face. It was Judge Thornton's son. Young Thornton's horse wheeled toward them. Samuel pressed Maria deeper into the sage, his hand over her mouth, not to silence her, to stop his own breathing from giving them away. The smoke had scraped his throat raw. The boy rode within 10 feet of their position, stopped. His horse's breath misted in the rain-cooled airs, or water dripped from his hat brim as he scanned the darkness. "Jimmy," one of the other riders called. "Come on," Pike said to clear out. Jimmy Thornton took a flask from his coat, drank deep. Barely 18, Samuel judged. Soft face under peach fuzz, attempting to be a beard. The judge's only son. "Comin'!" Jimmy spurred his horse back toward the dying fire. The 3 riders thundered west toward town. Samuel released Maria. She spat dirt, wiped her mouth with her burned sleeve. The blisters on her forearm had broken, clear fluid seeping. "Judge's son." "Tishkit," she said. "Yes." "Changes things." "Yes." They waited until the hoofbeats faded with tool. The cabin had collapsed to glowing timbers. 12 years of Maria's life, reduced to coals. She stood slowly, favoring her left ankle, must have twisted it in the tunnel. "Mission's 5 miles, Samuel said. "Can you walk? Can you?" She looked at his bad leg, covered in mud from crawling. "Fair point." Samuel tested his weight. "The joint held. Documents are gone. We need those mission records." "Not gone?" Maria pulled the oilcloth bundle from inside her shirt. "Damaged, but readable. Mission might have more." They skirted the remains of the cabin. Heat still radiated from the coals. The smell burnt flour, leather. Photographs reminded Samuel of Atlanta burning. Different war, same tactics. The paint mare stood in the lean-to, protected from fire by distance and wind direction. Clever animal. Maria ran her hands along its legs, checking for injury. The horse whickered, pushed its nose into her shoulder. "Can ride double to the mission," she said. Samuel looked at the sky. "Must too. Maybe 3 hours until the dawn." "We'll miss the hearing." "No, we won't." She led the mare out, used a fallen beam as a mounting block. Samuel climbed up behind her, ribs protesting from the smoke. The rain had stopped, leaving the desert smelling of creosote and char. They rode hard through the arrow washes, avoiding the main trail. Maria knew paths Samuel couldn't see, deer trails, Apache roads, older than American memory. His arms around her waist, he felt her breathing, controlled despite everything. Mission San Miguel emerged from darkness like a broken tooth, Half the roof had caved in years ago. Adobe walls stood naked against stars. No lights, no movement. Maria dismounted at what had been in the main entrance. Massive wooden doors hung askew on rusted hinges. She lit a match, studied the ground. Fresh tracks, shod horses, maybe 6 hours old. Garrison's men. Or thieves. Mission's been picked over for years. They entered through a gap in the wall. Broken tiles crunched underfoot. Bat guano streak-marked the walls. The altar had been stripped, even the crucifix gone. Sold probably to collectors back east. Maria led them behind the altar to a narrow door. Stone steps descended into darkness. She struck another match, revealing a vaulted basement. Wine storage once, now empty racks and rat droppings. Records room. She pointed to an iron door at the far end. The lock had been forced recently, fresh scratches on old metal. Inside, wooden shelves lined the walls, most empty. But in the corner, a chest. Spanish ironwork on the lid. The kind that took 3 men to move. Samuel lifted the lid. Documents. Hundreds of them. Spanish, Mexican, some early Texan. The smell of old paper and red wax seals. Maria held the match as he sorted through. Here. He pulled out a leather portfolio. Decretos territoriales, 18 inside surveys, grants, water rights allocations, all originals, with Mexican government stamps. Maria found her grandmother's grant, compared it to the charred copy. Perfect match, Samuel said. And look, he pulled out another document. Garrison's current land, originally granted to the Delgado family. Says here, the eastern boundary is Sunset Creek's western bank. He owns no water rights at all. Never did, unless these documents disappear. Footsteps above them, boots on stone, multiple men. Samuel drew his Colt. 5 shots left. Maria pulled her skinning knife. Wade, Miss Redwing, a familiar voice, not Pike. Samuel couldn't place it. More footsteps. They were surrounded. No exit except through whoever waited above. Captain Wade. The voice again. It's Sergeant Morrison. From Fort Worth. You sent me a telegram yesterday. Samuel lowered the Colt slightly. Morrison from the 14th Artillery. Lost his right arm at Gettysburg. Samuel had written to him about testifying. Morrison. Yes, sir. Brought 4 men with me. Got your message about the hearing? Samuel and Maria climbed the stairs. 5 veterans waited in the mission nave. Morrison, his empty right sleeve pinned to his shoulder. The others Samuel recognized Jenkins, Thomas, young Kowalski, and Beck with his eye patch. How did you find us? Samuel asked. Saw the fire from the road. Figured trouble. Then remembered you mentioned the mission in your telegram. The hearing's at noon, Maria said. No, ma'am. Morrison pulled out a watch. Judge arrived early. Moved it to 8 o'clock, 3 hours from now. That's not enough time to... With respect, ma'am. Morrison looked at his men. We've made forced marches on less notice. Beck, here's got a wagon. We can make town in 2 hours, have time to clean up before court. Why? Maria asked. You don't know me. Morrison looked at Samuel. Captain Wade called in our position once at Gettysburg. Would have been overrun otherwise. Man saves your life. You answer when he calls. Beck brought the wagon around a freight hauler with bench seats. Samuel helped Maria up, noticed her favoring the ankle more. She'd wrapped her burned arm in torn petticoat, but fluid still seeped through. They rode through breaking dawn. The desert turned from black to purple to gold. Saguaro cacti stood like witnesses. Morrison's men didn't talk much. Soldiers rarely did before action. Town appeared ahead. Smoke from breakfast fires. Normal people starting normal days. The courthouse stood at Main Street's end. False Greek columns trying for dignity in adobe and whitewash. Already a crowd gathered. Word traveled fast about early hearings. Samuel saw Garrison's men, Pike among them, Tom Hutchinson from the land office, and there Judge Thornton himself, black-robed, gray-bearded, looking judicial. No sign of his son, Jimmy. Pull around back, Samuel told Beck. They entered through the rear door, a small room for witnesses. Maria laid out the salvaged documents, the mission originals, her hands steady despite the burns. They'll challenge everything, she said. My testimony won't count Apache. Yours might not. Garrison will claim you're compromised. Let me handle Garrison's lawyer, Samuel said. 8 o'clock. The bailiff, old Peters with his union pin, called them in. The courtroom packed, mostly men, a few women in the back, Mexicans on one side, Anglos on the other. Clear battle lines. Garrison sat at the plaintiff table, gray suit, gold watch chain, the picture of prosperity. His lawyer Daniels from Austin, $100 a day, shuffled papers with practiced authority. Judge Thornton took his seat. His eyes found Samuel, then Maria, then flickered away. The matter of water rights, Sunset Creek Basin, Garrison Ranch claiming, Red Wing defending. Daniels stood, smooth as oil. Your Honor, this is simple. Mr. Garrison filed proper surveys. The defendant has provided no legal counter-documentation. We ask for summary judgment. Miss Redwing, the judge's voice neutral as dust. Maria stood. We have documentation. Original Mexican grants, mission records. Inadmissible, Daniel said immediately. Foreign documents. No legal standing in American court. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Samuel began. Mr. Wade isn't a lawyer. Daniels interrupted. Neither is he party to this dispute. Judge Thornton's gavel cracked. Mr. Wade may speak as witness for the defense. Samuel stood. His bad leg had stiffened from the wagon ride. He gripped the table edge. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Article 8, specifically protects Mexican property rights that predate annexation. Even if true, Daniel said, these documents could be forgeries, conveniently discovered after Miss Redwing's shed burned with her original papers. Her cabin burned, Morrison said from the gallery, last night. Order, Judge Thornton said, but weakly. Daniel smiled. Accidents happen. The point remains, without verification, these documents mean nothing. And who can verify them? A half-breed Apache and a crippled soldier. The word hung there, crippled. Samuel felt every eye in the room drop to his leg. Furthermore, Daniels continued, Mr. Wade and Miss Redwing was seen last night near Garrison property. A cavalry horse was found shot. Horse theft is a lie. The voice came from the back. Everyone turned. An old Mexican woman stood, Senora Delgado, 90 if she was a day, leaning on a carved walking stick. I know those documents, she said in accented English. My husband signed them. 34. Before Texas was Texas, before you Anglos came with your new lines and new laws. Judge Thornton's face had gone pale. His eyes kept flicking to the door, looking for someone. His son, Samuel, realized Jimmy should be here, testifying about the horse theft. But Jimmy wasn't here, because Jimmy was drunk somewhere, sleeping off his arson spree. Senora Delgado, the judge said carefully, do you swear to the authenticity of these documents? The old woman walked forward, each step deliberate. She reached the table, picked up the 1834 grant, ran her fingers over the seal. This is my husband's mark, she said, and this Garrison Ranch's western boundary is our old eastern boundary. The creek between, always between? Garrison stood abruptly. Your Honor, that's when Samuel saw it. Dirt under Garrison's fingernails. Fresh dirt, the kind you get from barring a door from the outside. Your Honor? Garrison's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. These documents haven't been properly authenticated. One old woman's memory isn't. My memory is better than your forged surveys. Senora Delgado tapped her walking stick against the floor. The sound echoed. Judge Thornton's gavel struck once, twice. Order. I need time to review these materials. His collar had gone dark with sweat. This hearing is recessed until now. Maria's voice cut through the room. She stood holding the burned edges of her documents. We've provided evidence, Mexican grants, mission records, witness testimony. Rule now. The judge's eyes darted to the door again. Still, no Jimmy. Miss Redwing, these are complex legal matters. The law is clear. Samuel pulled out his copy of the treaty. Article 8, Mexican property rights transfer intact. No complexity there. Daniels laughed. A soldier playing lawyer, Your Honor. Surely. I'm not playing anything. Samuel turned to address the room. Garrison filed false surveys, moved boundary markers. The original markers are documented here. He held up the rubbings. Anyone can verify the changes. Murmurs through the crowd. The Mexican families leaning forward, some of Garrison's own ranch hands shifting uncomfortably. Pike stood near the door. His hand rested on his pistol. Not threatening, just there. Judge Thornton saw it too. 2 weeks, the judge said. I'll render my decision in 2 weeks, Your Honor. Maria started. 2 weeks, Miss Redwing, or I dismiss your claim entirely. His gavel cracked. Court adjourned. The room erupted. Garrison pushed through the crowd. Daniels behind him. Pike and his men formed a wedge, clearing the path. Judge Thornton disappeared through his chamber's door. Morrison gripped Samuel's shoulder. That's not right. Captain, evidence was clear. Judge is compromised. Samuel kept his voice low. His son was there last night, at the fire. Morrison's jaw tightened. The other veterans closed ranks around Samuel and Maria. They moved as a unit through the crowd, out the back door, in the alley. Maria pulled away. 2 weeks. He's given them 2 weeks to destroy evidence. Threaten witnesses, or worse, Beck said. Maria walked into her horse. Each step deliberate, controlled. Thank you for coming, all of you. Ma'am, Morrison started. It's done. She mounted the paint mare. They win. They always win. She rode off before anyone could respond. Samuel watched her go, then turned to Morrison. Can you spare Beck's wagon? Where you going, Captain? To finish this. Samuel found her at sunset. The sacred place she'd mentioned, a flat-topped hill, 3 miles from her burned cabin. Ancient petroglyphs covered the rocks. She sat near the edge. Her grandmother's few surviving possessions spread around her, the pottery jar of healing herbs. 3 photographs in cracked frames, a beaded leather bag. Quite a climb for a cripple, she said without turning. Samuel eased himself down beside her. His bad leg screamed from the ascent. Morrison drove me most of the way. Go away, Samuel. First time she'd used his given name, he stayed put. The sun painted the desert red. From here, they could see the remains of her cabin, a black scar on the land. Beyond that, Garrison's ranch spread like a cancer. Maria picked up one of the photographs. A young Apache woman in traditional dress. My mother, before she met my father, before she tried to live in both worlds. She was beautiful. Beauty didn't save her. Maria set the photo in the leather bag. Nothing saves anyone out here, just delays the inevitable. You're giving up. I'm being practical. She picked up another photo, her as a child, maybe 6, standing between her parents. They'll never let me keep this land, even if I won legally. There'd be another fire, another accident, another dead horse blamed on me. Samuel pulled out his flask. Whiskey, cheap but clean, offered it to her. She drank, passed it back. After Antietam, he said, after the 3rd bullet, after 18 hours under dead men, After they finally dug me out, he took a drink. They sent me to a hospital in Washington. Told me I'd never walk again. But you did. No, I didn't. Not for 6 months. Lay in that bed, leg rotting, infection spreading. Doctors wanted to cut it off. I wanted them to cut all of it off. Just let me die clean. Maria turned to look at him. The setting sun caught her eyes, turned them amber. One morning, Samuel continued, a bird flew in the window. Sparrow, nothing special, landed on my bed rail, sang for maybe 10 seconds, then left. He drank again. I decided if that bird could sing in that place of death and shit and screaming, I could try to stand. Did you? Fell on my face, tore open the wounds. Nurses thought I'd gone mad. He showed her the flask, empty now. Took 3 more months, but I stood, then walked, then got myself out of there. This isn't the same. No, it's not. Samuel pulled out a folded paper from his coat. It's better. We have this. Maria took the paper, unfolded it, a deed transfer, dated today. Morrison's idea, Samuel said. You transfer the land to me, temporarily, white man, war veteran, property owner, changes the legal game. They'll just come after you. Let them. I've got nothing else to lose. Your life. Not much of one. He gestured at his leg. Can't work cattle. Can't ride properly. Can't even stand through a church service. What's that worth? Maria refolded the deed. You don't understand. This land, it's not just property. It's my mother's blood, my brother's grave, my grandmother's prayers soaked into the dirt. I can't just sign it over. Not signing it over, sharing it, until we win. You said it yourself. White male witness with military record. Make it more. Make me co-owner. Temporary. Until Garrison's beaten. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Another storm building. Maria stood, walked to the edge of the hill. The wind pulled at her hair, still smelling of smoke from last night's fire. There's something else, she said. Something I haven't told you. Samuel waited. Garrison didn't just take Mexican lands. Apache lands, too, sacred sites, burial grounds. She turned to face him. My cousin leads a band in the mountains. They've been waiting, watching. If I give the word, violence won't win this. Neither will law. You saw that, Judge. There's another way. Samuel stood, tested his weight. Judge Thornton's son, Jimmy. He was there last night, drunk, setting fires. Maria's eyes sharpened. You're certain? Saw his face clear in the moonlight. And he didn't show up to testify today about the horse theft, probably sleeping it off somewhere, or his father's hiding him. Either way, it's leverage. Maria walked back to her grandmother's things, picked up the beaded bag, the pottery jar. My grandmother told me once that revenge was like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. This isn't revenge, it's strategy. She looked at him for a long moment. You're not the same man who couldn't read a survey map 5 days ago. You're not the same woman who stood alone in that land office. No, I'm not. She signed the deed transfer. God help us both. Samuel Wade. A rider approached from below, moving fast, horse lathered, Morrison on a cavalry mount. He dismounted before the horse fully stopped, ran toward them. Captain Miss Redwing, he gasped for breath. Jimmy Thornton, they found him. Where? Samuel asked. Bottom of Sunset Creek Canyon. Dead. Shot in the back. Maria's hand found Samuel's arm. Her fingers pressed hard enough to bruise. Morrison continued. Sheriff's already issued warrants. For both of you. Morrison's horse stamped. Foam dripping from its bit. Sheriff's got men coming. 10 minutes, maybe less. Samuel grabbed Maria's wrist. When did Jimmy die? Don't know exact. Body's been in the water at least 6 hours. We were in the courthouse 6 hours ago. Witnesses. Won't matter. Morrison pulled ammunition from his saddlebags, handed it to Samuel. Pike's telling everyone you shot Jimmy last night during the fire. Maria pulled free from Samuel's grip. Jimmy was alive after the fire. We saw him right away. Your word against Pike's. Morrison scanned the darkening desert. Their dust cloud. Coming fast. Samuel made the calculation. 5 minutes to reach the wagon. Another 20 to town. They'd never make it. Morrison. Take Maria. Get her to Fort Worth. Federal jurisdiction. No. Maria picked up her grandmother's leather bag. Running makes us guilty. Prison makes us dead. Hoofbeats now. Multiple riders. Maria stood perfectly still, watching the dust cloud approach. 7 men. Sheriff Brennan in the lead, badge catching the last sunlight. Down, Samuel said. No? The riders surrounded them, guns drawn but not aimed. Yet, Brennan dismounted, favoring his left knee old injury from the war, Confederate, but fair. Mostly. Miss Redwing? Captain Wade? He touched his hat brim. Gotta bring you in. For what? Samuel kept his hands visible, away from his weapons. Murder of Jimmy Thornton. We were in court when Jimmy died, not when he was shot. Coroner says he took that bullet last night. Just took him time to die. Brennan's eyes stayed neutral. Pike saw you both near the canyon. Pike's lying. Maybe. But the judge wants you held until trial. The judge whose son is dead, Maria said quietly. Fair trial there. Brennan's jaw tightened. Not my call. Come peaceful, or don't. Your choice. Samuel counted guns. 7 men, 14 shots minimum. Morrison had his army Colt, but only one arm to use it. No good options. Sheriff, Morrison said, Captain Wade saved my unit at Gettysburg. Man's no murderer. War's over. Sergeant, different rules now. Maria stepped forward. I'll come, but I testify at tomorrow's hearing first. What hearing? Land dispute, still scheduled. Judge can't legally cancel it without cause. Brennan looked uncomfortable. Judge said, Judge can't preside over his son's murder case and a property case involving the same defendants. Legal conflict. Samuel remembered that from his officers training military justice procedures. He'll have to recuse himself from one or both. Or find us guilty of murder tonight and take our land tomorrow, Maria added. The sheriff's men shifted in their saddles. Young deputies, except for one Harlan, gray-bearded, wearing a faded Union kippah. He caught Samuel's eye, nodded slightly. Sheriff, Harlan said, they got a point. Can't hang folks before trial, and can't cancel a legal hearing without cause. Shut it, Harlan. Just saying. People are watching. Mexicans, Indians, even folks from Austin. What with that lawyer Daniels here? Harlan spat tobacco juice. Lots of eyes on this. Brennan removed his hat, wiped sweat from his forehead. Fine. Hearing tomorrow. Noon, then jail. Both of you? No jail, Samuel said. House arrest, Morrison's custody. I don't have authority. Telegraph Austin. Ask Daniels. He'll confirm civil dispute takes precedence over criminal charges when property rights are involved. Samuel was bluffing, but it sounded official enough. Brennan looked at his men, then at the growing darkness. All right, Morrison. They run. It's on you. They won't run. They spent the night in Morrison's boarding house room. Maria took the chair by the window, watching the street. Samuel spread the salvaged documents on the bed, organizing evidence. Morrison kept watch in the hallway. At 3 a.m, Maria spoke. They killed Jimmy themselves. Samuel looked up from the papers. Why? He was weak, drunk, might have talked about the fire. She turned from the window. Pike would see that as liability. Can't prove it. Don't need to. Just need doubt. Samuel found the water rights map. Someone Garrison probably had penciled in new boundaries. But underneath, pressed into the paper itself, were the original surveyor's marks. He held it to the lamplight. Look at this. Maria crossed to the bed. Where Samuel pointed, faint impressions showed the true boundaries. The surveyor used a metal stylus, Samuel said. Made impressions before inking. Can't erase those. Will the judge accept it? Not Thornton. But if we can force a different judge... Samuel pulled out his telegram forms. Time to call in debts. He wrote 5 telegrams. 1 to the territorial governor, a Union general who owed Samuel for intelligence work. 1 to the Austin newspaper. They'd love a story about land theft. 3 more to officers now in positions of influence. Morrison took them to the telegraph office before dawn. The courthouse overflowed. Word had spread overnight. Murder, land theft, Apache woman, war veteran. The whole town packed in, plus riders from neighboring settlements. Judge Thornton looked haggard, his eyes red-rimmed, clothes disheveled, but he took his seat, gavel in hand. The matter of Sunset Creek water rights. The door bursted open. A man in a federal marshal's badge entered. Behind him, another man in judge's robes. Judge Thornton, the marshal said, you're recused from this case. Federal oversight due to conflict of interest. You can't telegraph from the governor. The marshal handed over a yellow paper. Judge Patterson from Austin will preside. Patterson, tall and lean with Presbyterian severity, took Thornton's place. Continue with evidence. Daniels stood. Your Honor, my client. Sit down, Mr. Daniels. Defense presents first. Maria stood. The burned documents, water-stained but readable. The mission records, the surveyor's map with its pressed impressions. These prove, she said, voice carrying, that Garrison Ranch has no water rights. Never did. Objection, Daniels called. These defendants are charged with murder. Different case, different court. Patterson's voice cut like winter wind. Continue, Miss Redwing. Samuel stood next, explained the survey process, the falsified boundaries, the pattern of theft. His damaged hand trembled as he pointed to each piece of evidence, but his voice stayed steady. Furthermore, he said, Mr. Garrison himself was present at the fire. This dirt, he pointed to Garrison's hands, matches the soil used to bar Miss Redwing's door from outside. Garrison jerked his hands under the table. Too late. Everyone had seen. That's absurd, Daniels started. Call witnesses, Patterson said. They came, Morrison and his veterans, testifying to Samuel's character to Senora Delgado, confirming the original grants, then unexpected of 3 of Garrison's own ranch hands. He told us to move them markers, one said. Last winter, paid us extra to keep quiet. Traitors. Garrison stood. I fed your families. You stole from them first. The ranch hand said, Mexicans, Indians, now a war veteran. No, sir, not anymore. Pike's hand moved to his gun. Federal marshals moved faster. Try it. More witnesses. The Mexican families Garrison had cheated. Each told the same story. Surveys changed. Water stolen, forced to sell cheap or starve. By noon, the evidence stacked high. Patterson had taken notes in a precise hand. The room grew hot, packed bodies, and held breath. Mr. Garrison, Patterson said, your response. Daniels stood. These are all lies. Conspiracies. My client, your client can speak for himself. Garrison stood slowly. His gray suit showed sweat stains. I developed this land, brought prosperity. These people. He gestured at the Mexican families. At Maria. They couldn't manage it properly. So you stole it. I improved it. By falsifying surveys, by making it profitable. Patterson nodded. I've heard enough. He stood. The room held its breath. The court finds all water rights associated with Sunset Creek belong to Maria Redwing, based on original Mexican grants, protected under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The Mexican families erupted in celebration. Morrison's veterans cheered. Furthermore, Patterson continued, evidence suggests systematic fraud by Garrison Ranch. Federal investigators will review all property transfers in this county for the past 5 years. Garrison's face went white. He knew what they'd find. As for the murder charges, Patterson looked at Sheriff Brennan. Federal investigation of that, too. These defendants are released pending federal review. Maria's hand found Samuel's under the table. Squeezed once, hard. They'd won, except Pike still stood by the door, his hand still on his gun, and his eyes promised this wasn't over. Outside, he mouthed at Samuel. Tonight. 6 months. Samuel counted it in fence posts, 243 of them, now marking the boundaries of what had become the Redwing Wade Horse Ranch. His hands had grown new calluses over the old war wounds, better calluses, earned from building, not destroying. The morning sun caught Maria working the young stallion in the round pen. Apache methods, no force, just patience and pressure and release. The horse's coat gleamed black as oil, muscles rolling beneath. 2 buyers from Fort Worth watched from the rail, trying not to look too interested. $40, the older one said. Thompson owned a freight company. Maria didn't respond. Let the horse canter another circle, its gait smooth as water over stones. $50, the younger buyer said. Samuel leaned against his new walking-stick cedar, carved by Maria's cousin who'd come down from the mountains last month. His leg would never fully heal, but it held his weight better now. Daily work did that. Horse isn't for sale, Maria said finally. Everything's for sale. Not this one. He's breeding stock. The stallion slowed to a walk at her gesture. No rope, no whip. Just her raised hand, lowering slowly. The buyers exchanged glances. 60 for one of his offspring. When they're ready, 75. And you wait your turn. Already got 4 orders ahead of you. Thompson pulled out his wallet. 20 now to hold my place. Maria nodded. Samuel wrote the name in their ledger, the one they kept on the porch table. His writing, her numbers. System worked. After the buyers left, Maria led the stallion to the water trough. Her burned arm had healed, leaving a pattern of scars like a map of dried rivers. She never covered them. That's 12 horses sold or spoken for, Samuel said. 14, Hernandez wants 2 for his sons. They stood in comfortable silence. The new cabin smelled of pine sap and linseed oil. Smaller than Maria's original home, but better positioned, higher ground, clear sightlines, closer to water. They'd built it together, along with Morrison's veterans who'd stayed to work the ranch. Kowalski emerged from the barn, hay in his hair, mares showing signs. Tonight, maybe. I'll sit with her, Maria said. My turn, Samuel countered. You took the last 2. Your leg needs rest. My leg needs to be useful. She studied him. 6 months had taught her to read his stubbornness like weather signs. We both sit, like with the paint mare. The paint mare had birthed twins, rare and dangerous. They'd lost one. Saved the other only by taking shifts, feeding it bottle by bottle. That foal now followed Kowalski around like a dog. Afternoon brought unexpected visitor, Sheriff Brennan, hat in hand, and beside him, Mrs. Thornton, the judge's widow, dressed in black despite the heat. Samuel's hand found his rifle. Old habit. Not here for trouble, Brennan said quickly. Mrs. Thornton stepped forward. 60 years old, steel gray hair, carrying a carpet bag. Mr. Wade, Miss Redwing, Mrs. Wade now. Maria said quietly. "We married last month." Samuel felt the same surprise he'd felt then, that she'd wanted his name along with his partnership. The ceremony had been simple, Morrison as witness, Senora Delgado officiating with whatever authority her age granted her. "Congratulations," Mrs. Thornton said, seemed to mean it. "I came to tell you something." She sat on the porch step, uninvited, opened the carpet bag, pulled out papers. "My husband kept records, everything, including—" She handed them over. "Pike's reports, payments to move survey markers, orders to harass Mexican families." Her hands shook slightly. "And the night Jimmy died." Samuel read quickly. Pike's own handwriting. "Boy's a liability, drunk, talking. We'll handle it. Jimmy wasn't perfect," Mrs. Thornton continued. "Weak like his father, but he didn't deserve—" She stopped, composed herself. "Pike shot him, made it look like you two did it. Why tell us now?" Maria asked. "Because I'm leaving, back to Ohio. Nothing here but graves and guilt." She stood. "Pike fled to Mexico. Garrison lost everything, moved to California. My husband died 2 months ago. Heart gave out during the federal investigation." She walked to her buggy, turned back. "The water belongs with someone who understands its worth." After she left, Brennan lingered. "Federal marshal wants these papers. Evidence." Samuel handed them over. Justice, even late, was still justice. "Another thing," Brennan said. "Town council's voting tomorrow. About the school." "What about it?" "Whether to let Apache children attend." Maria's name came up. "As a teacher for the young ones." Maria's breath caught. Samuel saw her hand still on the horsebrush she'd been holding. "It'll be close," Brennan warned. "But times are changing. Slowly, evening painted the desert golden purple. Samuel and Maria sat on their new porch. Twin rockers Morrison had built as a wedding gift. The ledger lay between them, but neither looked at it. 20 horses by year's end, don't," Maria said. "Enough to pay off the loan. 25 if that mare births clean. Don't count foals before they stand." Old Apache wisdom, Maria's grandmother's saying. She'd been teaching Samuel the phrases, along with basic Apache words. His pronunciation made her laugh, not cruel laughter, but the kind that warmed a room. Beck appeared from the barn, mares starting. They walked together, Samuel's cane clicking on packed earth. The mare lay on clean straw, sides heaving. Maria knelt beside her, hands running along the swollen belly. "Positioned right," she said. "Just needs time." They settled in to wait. Beck brought coffee, thick and bitter. Morrison stopped by, then headed to town for his night shift at the telegraph office. He'd taken the job to bring in extra money. The mare labored. Maria sang something low in Apache. The horse seemed to calm. "My grandmother sang that when I was born," she said. "Mother told me. Means strong legs for the journey." "Will you teach it for when we—" Samuel stopped. They hadn't discussed children. Seemed presumptuous. Given everything. "When we what?" "Nothing. Just thinking ahead." Maria's hand found his in the darkness. "I think ahead, too." The foal came with the first stars, slick and dark, struggling to stand immediately. Good sign. Maria cleared its airways, stepped back to let mother and baby bond. "Colt," she announced. "Strong one." They watched the foal find its legs, fall, stand, fall, stand and stay up. "Sah, like you at the hospital," Maria said. "Like both of us after the fire." They returned to the porch, desert cooling fast, but neither went for jackets. The heat between them enough. "That school position," Samuel said. "You should take it. Half the town hates me, other half doesn't. Numbers will shift. You're optimistic, realistic." You're the best educated woman in 50 miles. They need you more than they hate you." Maria rocked slowly. "If I teach, you'll manage the ranch alone." "Not alone. Morrison, Beck, Kowalski, maybe some of the Mexican family's boys looking for work, building something bigger, building something that lasts." An owl called from the cottonwoods they'd planted along the creek. Still saplings, but growing. Everything here was growing. Maria stood, walked to the porch rail. Samuel joined her, hip against hip, watching stars emerge. The Milky Way ran river-like above them. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Samuel waited that first day in the land office. I knew who you were. Morrison had written to me, said a Captain Wade was coming to town, good with numbers and maps. You set me up. I gave you a choice. You took it. Why me specifically?" "Because Morrison said you were the most stubborn bastard he ever served under. Said you held a position for 6 hours at Chancellorsville that should have fallen in 20 minutes. Lost half my men doing it. Saved the other half." They stood quietly. The desert breathed around them. Small animals rustling, night birds calling, the eternal whisper of wind through sage. "I have something for you," Maria said. She went inside, returned with an object wrapped in deer hide, handed it over. Samuel unwrapped it, a cavalry saber, polished and sharpened, with new leather wrapping on the grip. "Found it at the trading post," she said. Thought you should have something from before that isn't just scars." Samuel drew the blade part way. His reflection fractured in the steel-scarred face, gray threading through brown hair, eyes that had seen too much but could still see beauty. "It's perfect. There's an inscription." He looked closer, etched in the blade, S&M Wade. "Sunset Creek, 1883. His throat tightened. "When did you—" "Last month. Before the ceremony. Had it done in Fort Worth." Samuel sheathed the saber, set it carefully on the porch table, turned to Maria. "I've been thinking, dangerous habit, about the future. The ranch is half yours legally. Should be fully yours. Your land by blood right." "Samuel, let me finish. But I'd like—" Words had never been his strength. Action was easier. He pulled out a small box from his pocket. "Found this at the same trading post. Inside, a ring, not gold, they couldn't afford gold. Silver, with a small turquoise stone. Apache craftwork. We're already married," Maria said. "Legally. For the land? This is different. This is asking if you want to stay married. To me, not for strategy or survival. For the mornings, the coffee, the way you sing to horses, the way you don't pity my leg, the way we work." Maria took the ring, turned it in the lamplight. "You're proposing, I'm asking. After we're already married. Seems the right order for us. Everything backwards but working." She slipped the ring on. It fit. Of course it fit. He'd measured her finger while she slept, using a piece of hay. "Yes," she said. "Yes. To the mornings, to the coffee, to all of it." Samuel kissed her, tasted sage to tea and possibility. When they parted, Maria smiled, the first full smile he'd seen from her, transformed her face from handsome to beautiful. "The foal," she said. "What should we name him?" "Dawn," Samuel said, "for new beginnings." "Dawn it is." They sat back in their rockers, hands linked between them. The desert spread endless and dark, but their small circle of light held steady. Tomorrow would bring workhorses to train, fences to mend, a school board to convince. But tonight they had the creak of rockers, the whisper of wind, the solid reality of survival transformed into something resembling peace. In the barn, the new foal whickered. His mother answered, low and reassuring, the sound of things beginning. I need to tell you how it ended, or rather, how it began. 5 years later, the Red Wing Wade Ranch had become something neither Samuel nor Maria had imagined. Not just a horse operation, but a gathering place. Mexican vaqueros taught Apache boys to work cattle. Confederate veterans shared coffee with Union soldiers. Maria's schoolhouse stood beside the main corral, where children learned numbers by counting foals and letters by writing their horses' names. Mrs. Delgado's granddaughter married Morrison's nephew there. An Apache ceremony, followed by a Catholic blessing. Samuel stood as witness, his cane forgotten as he danced badly but earnestly at Maria's insistence. The water from Sunset Creek fed 3 communities now. Legal agreements, written in English, Spanish, and Apache, ensured fair distribution. Garrison's old ranch had been divided among the families he'd cheated. Pike never returned from Mexico. But here's what mattered every Sunday. Their porch filled with voices, different languages mixing like water finding its level. Samuel's damaged hands serving Maria's cornbread, her scarred arm pouring coffee, their adopted son, a Mexican orphan, playing with Kowalski's daughter. They'd built more than a ranch. They'd built proof that broken people could create something whole. Note, this story was inspired by historical Western frontier narratives and created solely for entertainment purposes. This work does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. The story aims to explore themes of resilience, justice, and community building through dramatic narrative, while acknowledging the complex and often difficult history of the American frontier period.